Hi there. We're on day 215 of our Through the Bible in 1 Year. It's August 2nd. Today they have us reading 2nd Chronicles 32 and 33. We've read the rest of it at some point, and I kind of remember the story a little bit before they put Isaiah in the middle of it. And we don't know what they're talking about. So, Sennacherib's invasion. After these faithful deeds, what faithful deeds? I don't know. Let's see. Let's go here, and we'll go to 2nd Chronicles 31. Okay. As I got it all the Judah and faithful to the Lord. So, it's talking about reorganization of the priests and Levites. Thus, Hezekiah did throughout all Judah, and he did what was good and rightful and faithful in the sight of his Lord God in every work that he undertook in the service of the house of God, in accordance with the law and the commandments, seeking his God, he did all with his heart and prospered. So, that's what we're talking about. So, now we know, huh? 32. After these faithful deeds, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came and entered Judah. He laid siege to the fortified cities and intended to break into them. Hezekiah saw that Sennacherib had come, saw that Sennacherib had come and that he planned war on Jerusalem. Wow. So he consulted with his officials and his warriors about stopping up the waters of the springs that were outside the city, and they helped him. Many people gathered and stopped up all the springs in the stream that flowed through the land. They said, "Why should the kings of Assyria come and find plenty of water?" Then Hezekiah strengthened his position by rebuilding the entire broken down wall and heightening the towers on the other outside wall. He prepared the supporting terraces in the city of David and made an abundance of weapons and shields. Well, he's ready, right? He set military commanders over the people and gathered the people in the square of the city gate. Then he encouraged them, saying, "Be strong and courageous. Don't be afraid or discouraged before the king of Assyria or before the large army that is with him. For there are far more with us than with him. He has only human strength, but we have Yahweh our God to help us and to fight our battles." So the people relied on the words of King Hezekiah of Judah. That's a good king, right? Sennacherib's servant speech. After this, while Sennacherib, king of Assyria, with all his armed forces besieged Lachish, he sent his servants to Jerusalem against King Hezekiah of Judah and against all those of Judah who were in Jerusalem, saying, "This is what King Sennacherib of Assyria says. What are you relying on that you remain in Jerusalem under siege? Isn't Hezekiah misleading you to give you over to death and famine by thirst when he says, 'Yahweh, our God, will deliver us from the power of the king of Assyria'?" Then Hezekiah himself removed his high places and his altars and said to Judah and Jerusalem, "You must worship before one altar, and you must burn incense on it." Don't you know what I and my fathers have done to all the peoples of the lands? Have any of the national gods of the lands been able to deliver their land from my power? Who among the gods of these nations and my predecessors completely destroyed was able to deliver his people from my power? God's full of himself, huh? That your God should be able to do the same for you. So now, don't let Hezekiah deceive you, and don't let him mislead you like this. Don't believe him, for no God of any nation or any kingdom has been able to deliver his people from my power and the power of my fathers. How much less will your God deliver you from my power? Right. I think he's going to get his, huh? His servant said more against the Lord and against his servant Hezekiah. He also wrote letters to mock Yahweh, the God of Israel, saying against him, "Just like the national gods of the lands that did not deliver their people from my power, so Hezekiah's God will not deliver his people from my power." Then they called out loudly in Hebrew to prepare to the people of Jerusalem who were who were on the wall to frighten and discourage them in order that they might capture the city. They spoke against the God of Jerusalem like they had spoken against the gods of the peoples of the earth, which were made by human hands. Deliverance from Sennacherib. King Hezekiah and the prophet Isaiah, son of Amos, prayed about this. And, this is before. They're supposed to be in chronological order as the events happened in history, but we know that Hezekiah is gone in the other one, and the one that we read in Kings yesterday. Okay, King Hezekiah and the prophet Isaiah, son of Amos, prayed about this and cried out to heaven. And the Lord sent an angel who annihilated every brave warrior, leader, and commander in the camp of King Assyria. It was like 180,000. One angel did that. So the king of Assyria returned in disgrace to his land. He went to the temple of his God, and there some of his own children struck him down with the sword. His own kids killed him. So the Lord saved Hezekiah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem from the power of King Sennacherib of Assyria and from the power of all the others. He gave them rest on every side. Many were bringing an offering to the Lord to Jerusalem and valuable gifts to King Hezekiah of Judah, and he was exalted in the eyes of all the nations after that. Hezekiah's illness and pride. In those days Hezekiah became sick to the point of death. So he prayed to the Lord and spoke to him and gave him a miraculous sign. Wow. My phone's listening in on me. Okay. King became sick to the point of death, so he prayed to the Lord, and he spoke to him and gave him a miraculous sign. However, because his heart was proud, Hezekiah didn't respond according to the benefit that had come to him. So there was a wrath on him, Judah and Jerusalem. Then Hezekiah humbled himself for the pride of his heart, he and his inhabitants of Jerusalem, so the Lord's wrath didn't come on them during Hezekiah's lifetime. Hezekiah's wealth and works. We're still in the first chapter. Hezekiah had abundant riches and glory and made himself treasures of silver, gold, precious stones, spices, shields, and every desirable item. He made warehouses for the harvest of grain, new wine, and oil, and stalls of all kinds of cattle, pens, and flocks. He made cities for himself, and he acquired herds of sheep and cattle in abundance, for God gave him abundant possessions. The same Hezekiah blocked the outlet of water of the upper Gihon and channeled it smoothly downward and westward to the city of David. Hezekiah succeeded in everything he did. When the ambassadors of Babylon's rulers were sent to him to inquire about the miraculous sign that had happened in the land, God left him to test him and discover what was in his heart. As for the rest of the events of Hezekiah's reign, his deeds and faithful love, note that they are in the visions of the prophet Isaiah, son of Amos, and in the book of Kings of Judah of Israel. Hezekiah rested with his fathers and was buried on the ascent to the tombs of David's descendants. All Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem paid him honor at his death. His son Manasseh became king in his place. Now Manasseh was a very, very spoiled child, I guess, right? Manasseh was 12 years old when he became king and reigned 55 years in Jerusalem. That's a long time. All right? That's till he was 67. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight, imitating the detestable practices of the nations that the Lord had dispossessed before the Israelites. He rebuilt the high places that his father Hezekiah had torn down and reestablished the altars for the Baals, Satan, right? He made Asherah poles, and he worshipped the whole heavenly host and served them. He built altars in the Lord's temple, where Yahweh had said, Jerusalem is where my name will remain forever. He built altars to the whole heavenly host in both the courtyards and the Lord's temple. He passed his sons through the fire in the valley of Hinnom. He practiced witchcraft, divination, and sorcery, and consulted mediums and spiritists. He did a great deal of evil in the Lord's sight, provoking him, God, right? And it was Manasseh that had Isaiah put to death. So Manasseh set up a carved image of the idol that he had made in God's temple, about which God had said to David and his son Solomon, I will establish my name forever in this temple and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. I will never again remove the feet of the Israelites from the land where I have stationed your ancestors, if only they will be careful to do all that I have commanded them through Moses and the law, statutes, and judgments. So Manasseh caused Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to stray, so that they did worse evil than the nations the Lord had destroyed before the Israelites. Right. Manasseh's repentance. The Lord spoke to Manasseh and his people, but they didn't listen. So he brought against them the military commanders of the king of Assyria. They captured Manasseh with hooks, bound him with bronze shackles, and took him to Babylon. When he was in distress, he sought the favor of Yahweh his God and earnestly humbled himself before the God of his ancestors. He prayed to him, so he heard his petition and granted his request and brought him back to Jerusalem to his kingdom. So Manasseh came to know that Yahweh is God. After this, he built the outer wall of the city of David from the west of Gihon to the valley entrance of the fish gate. He brought it around the Ophel and heightened it considerably. He also placed military commanders in all the fortified cities of Judah. He removed the foreign gods and the idol from the Lord's temple, along with all the altars that he built on the mountain of the Lord's temple and in Jerusalem, and he drew them outside the city. He built the altar of the Lord and offered fellowship and thank offerings on it. He told Judah to serve Yahweh, the God of Israel. However, the people still sacrificed at the high places, but only to Yahweh, their God. Yeah. Only one place they're supposed to do that. Manasseh's death. The rest of the events of Manasseh's reign, along with his prayer to his God and the words of the seers he spoke to him in the name of Yahweh, the God of Israel, are written in the records of Israel's king. His prayer and how God granted his request and all his sin and faithfulness in the sites where he built high places and set up Asherah poles and carved images where he humbled himself. They are written in the records of Hosea. I don't know what that is. Manasseh rested with his fathers, and he was buried in his own house. His son Amon became king in his place. Amon was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned 2 years in Jerusalem. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight, just as his father Manasseh had done. Amon sacrificed to all the carved images that his father Manasseh had made and served them. But he did not humble himself before the Lord like his father Manasseh humbled himself. Instead, Amon increased his guilt. So his servants conspired against him and put him to death in his own house. The common people executed all those who conspired against King Amon and made his son Josiah king in his place. Okay. And we read the same story out of Kings. It was slightly different. But there you have it. And what are we doing tomorrow? Nahum. That's a book I have not read in many, many years. Nahum. But that's what we'll do tomorrow. But we're getting through there. Day 215. That means we have 350 days left. No, 250. 150. 150 days left. 215 and 150 is 365, right? 115. I don't have my thinking cap on, as you can see. But there you go. Catch up in any may miss. Give us a like if you think about it. We will get through the entire Bible in 1 year. See you next time.